CEO's shocking divorce filing reveals she's pregnant. A bone-chilling regret unfolds at 3 a.m. The news hit like a thunderclap in the quiet of the night. A sleek lit-up city skyline masked shadows of scandal that twisted and turned behind closed doors. Whispers filled the air. Could this really be happening? Did she betray him? The pages of the divorce papers rustled in the stillness like a ghostly omen, proclaiming not just the unraveling of a marriage, but the inexplicable news of an unexpected pregnancy. An unholy mixture of emotions surged through the darkened penthouse. She stood there, the city lights casting an eerie glow on her frozen expression. Her heart raced, and she clutched those papers so tightly that the edges dug into her palms, a physical reminder of her crushing reality. How could the life she'd carefully constructed become a minefield of regret? The room was thick with secrets, and the clock ticked louder with each passing second. 3 a.m. felt like the climax of a twisted thriller, and it was only just beginning. The first sign of trouble appeared like a crack in a glass window. No one expected the CEO of a booming tech empire to file for divorce. Yet, here she was, holding a shocking secret that threatened to shatter her world completely. They had been the perfect couple, or so they seemed to everyone else. But behind the curtain, there was a haunting dissonance. How had it come to this? And what did the future hold for her burgeoning life? The tension escalated as the realization washed over her. This baby was a not-so-gentle reminder of lost love, dreams derailed, and the ticking clock of consequence. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the clock struck 3:15, a scream echoed in the back of her mind. What had she done? Alone, she felt the icy grip of fear clutching her chest tighter by the second. The weight of her choices bore down on her like a heavy fog, insidious and relentless, making her wonder if escape was even possible. The silence was unbearable now, broken only by the occasional distant siren wailing through the city streets. Outside, the world carried on, blissfully unaware of the turmoil she was experiencing, and just when she thought the darkness couldn't grow deeper, a knock echoed through the corridor, a sharp, demanding rap at the door that jolted her senses. She hesitated, the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. Who would come knocking at this hour? Was it her husband? A friend? Or someone far scarier? She took a deep breath, bracing herself for whatever lurked beyond that door, wondering if this moment was about to change her life forever. The knock resonated again, louder this time, relentless echo that shattered the stillness in her penthouse. Fear coiled in her stomach as she moved towards the door, each step heavy with uncertainty. Who was behind it? She peered through the peephole, heart pounding wildly like a trapped bird. The figure was obscured by the dim corridor light, but a sense of urgency surged through them, their posture tense, demanding. Anxiety twisted within her. She could hardly breathe. Should she open it? What if it was a mistake? The seconds ticked by like hours. She gripped the door handle, hesitating. The cold metal felt foreign against her clammy palm. Memories of happier times washed over her, the laughter they shared, the plans they made, now reduced to this single moment where everything hung in precarious balance. Before she could make a decision, the knocking escalated, morphing into frantic thumps that spoke of desperation. That S when a voice called out, a voice she recognized all too well. "It's me, Sarah. Please let me in." Her breath hitched. Why would he be here at this hour? She opened the door an inch, feeling her heart race at the sight of him. Her husband stood there, his normally composed demeanor shaken, eyes wide with an unsettling blend of fear and urgency. "Sarah, we need to talk. Now." He pushed the door open, bypassing her resistance. Instinctively, she stepped back, confusion flooding her mind. What's going on? As he entered, he glanced around, assessing their intimate space, now charged with tension. I know about the baby. Those words hung heavy in the air between them. Panic surged inside her, mixing with a numbing sense of dread. How could he? Her heart sank as she processed the implication.
How?
I thought you didn't know. A bitter laugh escaped him, layers of hurt and betrayal wrapped tightly around each syllable. I didn't, but I do now. The papers, they were just the tip of the iceberg, weren't they? You've been living a lie, and we both know it. Her throat tightened as she searched his face, looking for signs of the man she'd once loved fiercely, but all she saw was a storm brewing in his eyes. I thought we had a chance to fix things. Fix what? He shot back, his voice rising. You're having another man's child while I'm left in the dark. How can you expect me to fix us? The weight of their reality crashed down on her, a tidal wave of despair. She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out, just silence, thick and suffocating. Her chest felt tight as she grappled with the truth of her actions laid bare before her. In the deafening quiet that followed, she could hear the distant sounds of the city, life carrying on outside as if nothing were wrong. But everything was wrong. With every passing second, time felt like it was slipping through her fingers. Sarah, I can't do this anymore, he said, voice trembling with emotion. I need to know, is this child even mine? The question sliced through her. How can you ask that? She whispered, hurt swelling within her. Because nothing makes sense anymore. Their shared pain crackled in the air, igniting a desperation that needed resolution. What do you want me to say? He closed the distance between them, anger and sorrow mixed within his gaze. I need the truth, or else I'm done. The walls felt like they were closing in. The night, heavy with unspoken words and heartbreak, pressed down on them. She swallowed hard, the lump in her throat blocking her ability to speak. But deep down, a choice had to be made, and the outcome could change everything. Could she bear to let the truth out? Before she could decide, the wailing of sirens broke the tension from outside, piercing through the storm that raged within her. Eyes wide, they both turned towards the sound, wondering what new chaos had slipped into their lives. And as they stood, a terrible uncertainty loomed over them, leaving a chilling question that echoed deeper than any siren. What would be revealed in the dark hours yet to come? The sirens grew louder, a cacophony that wrapped around their fragile moment, pulling them both from the brink of collapse. Sarah felt the world teetering on the edge of insanity. Outside, the city's pulse quickened, its lights flickering like a warning beacon. Inside, her marriage hovered in suspended animation, threatening to shatter at any second. Sarah, he said, his voice now a low rumble, filled with turmoil. You have to tell me. Was it him? The name hung in the air like a dark cloud, the unspoken truth overshadowing everything. She shook her head, tears blurring her vision. No, she started, but he cut her off. Stop lying. He stepped closer, his tone sharp, like glass, and she flinched at the raw accusation. I can feel it. You've been hiding, and it's worse than I thought. The earthquake of their situation twisted the reality around her. I'm not lying, she pleaded, fighting the quiver in her voice. I didn't intend for any of this to happen. But deep down, she was confronted with a bitter truth. The weight of her choices clawed at her conscience, a relentless pit that refused to let go. Outside, the wail of sirens reached a fevered pitch, and she wished she could disappear as easily as the brightly colored lights spiraled past the window. Just then, a loud crash echoed down the hallway, followed by shouted commands. It sounded far too close for comfort. Please listen to me. She stepped forward, desperation spilling from her. I need you to trust me. Not everything is what it seems. Trust? Trust you? He spat, eyes narrowing. You've shattered that already. You think I can just take your word? Her heart raced as fear bubbled closer to the surface. No. Just give me a moment to explain. The doorbell rang, a hard, persistent chime that echoed sharply. They both turned, eyes wide, as if that chime had the power to knock their troubles away.
Who could that be?
He muttered, face taut with confusion. I don't know. She struggled to regain her composure, knowing that any interruption felt incredibly unwelcome at that moment. A dozen fears raced through her mind, but she had a more pressing concern. Could this be someone who might unveil everything they were desperately trying to hide? Stay here, he commanded, marching toward the entranceway.
Wait.
Sarah's heart raced anew. She fought against the instinct to plead with him not to answer, not when their lives hung by the fragile thread of shared trust. But he pushed the door open anyway. A man stood there, hair slicked back, wearing a leather jacket that looked too tight for comfort. He bore an expression that was part desperation, part urgency. Is this Sarah Matthews? He demanded, eyes darting around the dimly lit penthouse like a predator searching for prey. Who wants to know? Her husband growled, stepping protectively in front of her. The newcomer leaned closer, urgency tenfold. I need to speak with her. It's about the baby. Sarah's heart plummeted. She froze, the walls closing in, each breath echoing like a drumbeat of dread. The man had a familiarity to him, something she sensed but couldn't place. Get out, her husband roared, teeth clenched. You have no business here.
No.
The voice burst out from Sarah, a wild, unintentional scream that silenced everyone in the room. Let him in. She moved past her husband, the air thick with tension. She didn't know who this man was, but she was drawn to him, the urge to uncover secrets overpowering her better judgment. Sarah, her husband, warned, eyes shifting between them with a mix of anger and confusion. Please, she urged, heart pounding. I have to know what he wants. And the moment hung heavily, poised on the edge of revelation. Would this man speak the words that would change everything or plunge them deeper into chaos? As hope and fear mingled in the air, time seemed to hold its breath. The man stepped inside, his presence filling the room with a palpable tension. Sarah's heart thudded loudly against her ribs, each pulse a reminder of the silence stretched between them. The door clicked shut behind him, sealing them away from the chaos outside.
Who are you?
Her husband's voice shook with barely concealed rage. He crossed his arms, a barrier set against any revelation this stranger might bring. The man's gaze landed on Sarah, piercing through her defenses. I know what happened. I know about the baby, he said, his voice lower now, more reserved but dripping with urgency. Sarah wanted to scream. She felt exposed, as if the walls themselves were closing in. You don't know anything, she managed, though her voice quivered. I know enough, he replied, his eyes shifting to scan the room as though considering every detail, every potential eavesdropper. And it's only a matter of time before everyone does. What do you mean? The words cut through the silence like a knife, and she could see her husband's posture stiffen, confusion mingling with anger on his face. We need to get somewhere safe, the stranger said, ignoring her question, his voice urgent, desperate. They're coming. Who's coming? Her husband demanded, stepping closer to Sarah. The heat of his anger radiated off him, but she felt a strange pull toward the stranger. I can't explain everything here. Just trust me, he said, glancing behind him as if expecting someone to burst through the door at any moment. We don't have time for this. Trust you? Her husband scoffed, incredulous. Why would I trust you? Because if you don't, you risk losing everything. The man's intensity shifted, shifting from frantic to deadly serious. Sarah felt the weight of that statement settle hard in the pit of her stomach. I need to know what you're talking about, she said, breaking the standoff. Her voice was steadier than she felt, driven by some unseen force. What do you mean about the baby? The tension in the air replicated a taut wire ready to snap at any moment. She could feel her husband's gaze on her, filled with betrayal, confusion, and fear. But she didn't care. Her instinct knotted tightly around her core, driven by the knowledge that curiosity could either save her or destroy her. I'm not the only one who knows, the stranger said sharply, shooting a glance at the door. And if I don't get you out of here now, we'll all regret it. What are you implying? Her husband's voice was a low growl. This is ridiculous. Open your eyes. The stranger shot back, voice rising. This isn't just about you two anymore. This goes deeper, much deeper. Lives are at stake. Outside, the sirens quieted, replaced by the muffled sounds of heavy footsteps, multiple sets marching in force toward their door. The tension morphed from anxiety to stark panic. Sarah glanced quickly to her husband, who wore a mask of disbelief, his expression shifting into something unrecognizable. Who are you really? He demanded again, heart racing. The man opened his mouth but was promptly interrupted as the door rattled violently, a deep thud echoing through the walls.
Now.
The stranger spat, eyes wide, a silent plea painted on his face. Before Sarah could grasp the reality of the situation fully, she felt the pull to move. She didn't know if fleeing would save them or seal their doom, but she glanced at her husband one last time, silently begging him to follow her lead. Then, it hit her each choice they made from this moment on could lead them into light or darkness. Time felt fractured, slipping through her fingers like grains of sand. Let us go, she commanded, her voice steady, cracks of urgency layering her syntax, and with that, they turned toward the unknown, racing against the clock of impending disaster. But as they reached the stairwell, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that whatever awaited them on the other side of that door would change everything. What had she truly unleashed, and would they be able to survive it? They sprinted down the stairs, the echo of their hurried footsteps amplifying the chaos that swirled around them. Each leap felt like a descent into a shadowy abyss, dread pooling in the pit of Sarah's stomach. They passed door after door, each a potential hiding place, and each a potential death trap. Sarah. Her husband's voice cut through her racing thoughts. Where are we going? I don't know, she shouted back, panic tightening her throat. She could feel the walls closing in, no longer a home but a prison. We just need to get away.
Wait.
The stranger panted, his urgency pushing them forward. Turn right here. They skidded around the corner, hearts pounding and adrenaline surging. But in the split second it took to change direction, Sarah caught a glimpse of something deeper in the man's eyes. Fear. It was an unfamiliar sight, one that sent a shiver racing down her spine. They crashed through a black door, the cold metal unyielding against their escape. Inside, the dim light threw elongated shadows across old filing cabinets and forgotten desks. To anyone else, it could have been an abandoned office. To Sarah, it was a labyrinth of secrets waiting to be revealed. Stay low, the stranger hissed, crouching behind a flimsy partition. We need to be quiet. They followed his lead, instincts flaring as they pressed close together, listening. Outside, footsteps stomped heavily. Muffled voices surged all around, rising and falling, searching. Why are they after us? Sarah whispered, her heart pounding loudly in her ears.
What do they want?
The stranger's eyes darted around, and he took a moment before whispering. They want the truth. And they'll stop at nothing to get it.
Truth.
The word echoed. But which truth? Was it about the baby? The mystery that had settled like a fog over her marriage? Or something much darker, something that would shift the ground beneath their feet like an earthquake?
Who are you?
Her husband demanded, squeezing Sarah's hand tightly. What do you know? More than I was ever supposed to, the man muttered, gaze flicking toward the door, as if hoping it would become invisible. Look, you both need to understand your lives aren't just your own anymore. It's about everything. The baby, it's bigger than all of us. Sarah's chest tightened. What does that mean? Before he could respond, the door rattled violently again, followed by a voice that sent shockwaves through Sarah's body. We know you're in there. Come out with your hands up. Fear cascaded into action. The stranger held up a hand, signaling for silence. We need to be clever, we need an exit strategy. Follow me. As they shuffled deeper into the room, they stumbled upon an old maintenance door. The stranger gripped the handle, glancing back at the couple. This leads to the alley behind the building. We can slip out unnoticed. But Sarah hesitated, the weight of the choice heavy in the air. What if they catch us? Then we're trapped, he urged.
Trust me, you have to trust me.
There, in that stolen moment of tension, Sarah's instincts kicked in. It was raw survival now, instincts flaring brighter than betrayal and doubt. She felt a flicker of hope blending with the fear. "Let us go," she whispered, eyes burning with determination. They stepped toward the door, entangling themselves in a web of uncertainty, the sounds of the world outside morphing into a haunting lullaby of danger. Would they find freedom on the other side, or would it lead them further into the abyss? Screams echoed in the distance.
Now,
the stranger cried as he flung the door open. Before fear could take hold again, they charged through, invading the darkness together. They were headed into the unknown, and every heartbeat brought them closer to either salvation or doom. But as they slipped into the alley, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being watched like invisible eyes were tracking their every move. What awaited them in the shadows? And why did the impending storm seem to circle closer with each passing second? The cold air of the alley consumed them as they stepped outside, the streetlights flickering overhead like dying stars. Shadows danced and snagged at their heels, while half-remembered whispers of anxiety snaked around their minds. Sarah could hear their breathing, heavy and ragged hers and her husband's almost as loud as the echo of chasing footsteps behind them.
"Where now?"
she asked, urgency pricking her voice. The stranger pointed to a narrow path leading away from the alley, barely visible under the web of flickering lights. "That way," he urged, slipping into the darkness ahead of them. They stumbled after him, fear igniting their legs. The atmosphere crackled, thick with tension. Every shadow felt alive, each corner a potential ambush. Panic settled in Sarah's chest like a stone. She could hear her heartbeat thudding, drowning out the sounds of the world around her. They were running blind into an uncertainty that felt all too familiar, and she wasn't sure how to escape it. "Do you trust him?" her husband asked suddenly, his voice a low growl. He kept his eyes on the man ahead, sharp and wary. "I don't know," Sarah replied, her voice trembling. "But we don't have a choice." Ahead, the stranger ducked into a side street, pulling them into an even darker corridor. Car alarms wailed in the distance, echoing their frantic desperation. They dodged around a dumpster overflowing with refuse, nasty odors assaulting their senses, but Sarah barely noticed. She was consumed by what lay ahead, the unknown, and the unsettling feeling that they were being hunted. "What's the plan?" she urged, willing the stranger to provide assurance, but the man stayed silent, his eyes darting around, scanning for threats. He reached the end of the corridor, placing a finger to his lips and signaling for them to halt. Leaning against a brick wall, he pulled out his phone and glanced at it. The screen flashed an ominous red. "They're close," he whispered through gritted teeth.
"Who?"
Sarah pressed, leaning closer, her heart in her throat. "The people after you, they know this area. We just need a few minutes to rest, to think." But before they could truly catch their breath, the distant sound of tires screeching took them by surprise, fading quickly but resonating in Sarah's bones like a warning bell.
"Did you hear that?"
Sarah whispered harshly. "Yes," the stranger replied, eyes intense. "We'll need to move fast. We can't stay here." At that moment, sirens blared in the distance, slicing through the heart-stopping silence. Lights flashed somewhere beyond the debris-choked streets. All of a sudden, a pang of regret hit Sarah, thoughts of what they'd left behind, the dramatically shattered image of their life, the baby floating like a specter in the back of her mind. "No, wait," she shouted, holding her hands up. "What if we just talk to them? Explain, are you kidding?" Her husband shot back, desperation coloring his words. "It's not like that. We don't even know who they are. It doesn't matter," the stranger hissed. "Over here." He grabbed Sarah's wrist, pulling her towards a narrow gap between two buildings. They squeezed through, feeling the jagged edges of brick slice against their skin. Darkness enveloped them again, and Sarah's breath came faster. The weight of uncertainty hung heavily in the air, a tension that threatened to snap. Once on the other side, the stranger halted and peered around the corner. "No one is going to be looking here, at least for now," he muttered. The sound of footsteps drew closer, a chorus of urgency, as more shouts rang out in the twilight. The hunt was on, and they were slipping deeper into a nightmare. In moments, they'd either be caught or they'd slip past unnoticed. "Where do we go from here?" her husband asked, fear bleeding into his voice as they all pressed against the cold walls. The stranger hesitated. "This isn't just about hiding anymore. We need to face them." "I know a place is safe house," he said, turning his eyes to Sarah. "But you need to trust me completely." Before she could respond, a crash sounded behind them, and Sarah's breath caught in her throat. The revelation loomed close.
Wait.
Her voice trembled as a bitter truth surfaced. What if we don't want to face them? What if we want to run? And as the footsteps surged forward, advancing on their prickling vulnerability, Sarah knew they had little time. The clock was ticking. Would they find safety, or would fate confront them all head-on? The echo of heavy boots and the need for answers crashed over them like a wave. What waited beyond the next alley's shadow? A choice, a truth, or a grave danger. Darkness closed in around them as they pressed against the rough wall, their hearts racing like trapped animals. Sarah's eyes flickered to the stranger, desperate for guidance, but all he offered was a stony determination. The urgency of their situation bore down on her like a lead weight. "Shouldn't we be running?" she whispered, her throat tight. She could feel her husband's tension radiating off him, each breath a mix of fear and uncertainty. Before the stranger could answer, the sound of footsteps shifted, unexpectedly echoing closer, the crunch of gravel signaling their pursuers were drawing near. Panic gripped Sarah as if the night itself was alive, suffocating her every thought. "They're almost here," the stranger hissed, urgency threading through his words.
We have to move now.
Just as he turned to lead them deeper into the labyrinth of shadows, a piercing scream rang out in the stillness, cutting through the night like a knife. It came from the direction they had just fled. Sarah's stomach dropped. Someone was in danger, but whom? "Listen," her husband said urgently. "What if we could stop this? What if we could help?" "No," Sarah interrupted, her voice rising. "We have to think about ourselves first. You can't help anyone if we're caught." The stranger grabbed her shoulder, his grip firm as their eyes met. "She's right. We can't risk it, not now. Staying here could mean death for all of us. Let us go." With that, they took off again at a frantic pace, navigating the narrow passageway that twisted and turned like a maze. Panic surged within Sarah, but so did an unsettling determination. Something about their situation felt wrong, drastically wrong, almost as if they were pieces on a game board manipulated by an unseen hand. Suddenly, the stranger stopped at a rusted door half obscured by shadows and debris. "In here," he urged, pushing it open with a screech that echoed like a scream in the stillness. With little choice, they rushed inside, the musty air welcoming them with a strange sense of comfort. It was a small room, dimly lit by a flickering bulb hanging from the ceiling. Discarded furniture was piled against the walls, and a lone window faced the alley outside. "Are we safe here?" Sarah asked, scanning the space for any visible threats, heart pounding in her ears. "For now," the stranger replied, but he didn't sound entirely convinced. "But we can't linger. I need you both to trust me. The danger we face is far worse than it seems." "What do you mean?" her husband demanded, tension rippling through his voice. "There are powerful people involved in this, people who won't hesitate to eliminate anyone standing in their way. You've seen what they're capable of," he breathed, glancing back at the door as if already predicting their imminent discovery. "No, you need to tell us everything," Sarah insisted, feeling an edge of desperation creeping into her tone. "We can't just blindly follow you without knowing what we're up against." As the stranger hesitated, the door rattled, a sharp thud resonating as heavy boots stomped outside. Sarah's heart raced, each pulse echoing a primal instinct to run. "Please, just a little more time," the stranger pleaded, sweat glistening on his brow as he edged closer to the door. "We have to prepare for what's coming. It's worse than you could imagine." "Or maybe we should just leave?" Sarah suggested, every nerve screaming at her to escape while they still could. The pounding on the door intensified, rattling the thin frame as if it might burst open any moment. Sarah, her husband, cautioned, their eyes locked in a fierce moment of decision. What do we do? With the threatening figures outside drawing near, Sarah felt the weight of betrayal and surprise flood through her veins, suffocating her will for survival. This was no longer just about them running. It was about facing something far more sinister that lurked in the shadows. And then it hit her a chilling realization. The secret they might uncover could shatter them all, even if they managed to escape the looming threat. As the door shuddered under their pursuers. Wait! Sarah felt the walls closing in, a heavy silence filling the room, punctuated only by her rapid heartbeat. Trust him or run, she thought, the split-second decision hanging over them like a guillotine, before the door flew open with a thunderous crash. What would they choose, the truth that could destroy them or the darkness closing in around them? The door burst open, splintering against the wall as shadows spilled into the small room. 3 figures stood silhouetted in the doorway, their faces obscured but their intent unmistakable. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, her mind racing. Time slowed as she felt the world around her shudder, momentarily paralyzed by the looming threat.
Get back,
the stranger growled, stepping in front of them like a human shield. His body language cracked with tension, ready to fight or flee. Somewhere behind him, Sarah caught the glint of metal, a knife. The sight sent an electric jolt of fear through her veins.
Who are you?
One of the intruders barked, his voice low and gravelly, dripping with menace. You're not supposed to be here. Neither are you. The stranger shot back, every word laced with defiance. Move aside, friend, a second figure said, his tone slick and cold. We don't want to hurt anyone yet. But if you don't step back, it'll get ugly. Sarah's heart thundered. She had to think, had to act. She tightened her grip on her husband's arm, feeling him tense beside her. What do we do? She whispered, panic bleeding into her words. Stay quiet, the stranger hissed. Trust me. We just need a moment. But moments were fading fast. Footsteps boomed in the alley, an echoing reminder of their pursuers, their relentless persistence threatening to close in on them. Enough of this. The first intruder sneered, stepping forward, pushing the stranger into the wall. A struggle erupted, a quick dance of desperation as fists flew and bodies collided. Sarah's breath came in sharp gasps as she felt the weight of chaos engulfing her.
Help him,
her husband yelled, moving toward the fight, a futile rush of bravery surging through him. Before Sarah could react, he was yanked back, a burly figure gripping his shirt collar as if he were a rag doll. Don't you dare! She screamed, rushing to grab her husband's arm, her heart racing with adrenaline. She didn't know what she could do, but her instincts screamed for her to protect him. In an instant, everything shifted, a sickening thud as the stranger crashed against the wall, sliding down in a heap. He was down but not out. Run, he shouted, eyes fierce as they locked with Sarah's. Get out of here.
Now.
But the words barely registered. The intruders were drawing closer. Sarah felt hot tears prick her eyes as panic flooded every corner of her mind. She couldn't abandon him, could she? Suddenly, the sounds of sirens blared in the distance, slicing through the tension like a knife of hope. Help is coming, Sarah gasped, instinctively reaching for the stranger's hand. Don't count on it, the second figure growled, seizing the moment to push Sarah against a rickety table. The edge bit into her ribs, pain flaring through her with a sudden force. Leave them, the first intruder commanded. We have bigger fish to fry. In that moment of chaos, Sarah glanced at her husband, who nodded, a silent understanding passing between them. They had no choice, they had to escape. As the two exchanged frantic glances, the tension snapped when Sarah's finger grazed a rusted metal pipe on the floor. An idea ignited in her mind, impossible yet thrilling. Run for the window, she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise like a beacon. A distraction? Her husband barked, disbelief lacing his tone. Just trust me. Before they could change their minds, Sarah swung the pipe hard against the nearest figure. The sickening crack echoed hauntingly in her ears. He staggered back, stunned. Without a second thought, she grabbed her husband's hand, dragging him toward the window as the other intruders shouted in rage. They barely had time to scramble through the opening, adrenaline coursing through them like wildfire. They landed hard on the cold pavement outside, sprawling onto the ground, gasping. Leaning against the wall, Sarah felt the weight of their choices crushing down on her. They de-escaped, but at what cost? As the sounds of chaos faded into the night, they quickly scrambled to their feet, looking down the alley where the shadows lingered, waiting for the next threat to emerge. Could they navigate this darkness together? Or would the secrets they uncovered tear them apart? The alley was dead quiet, and for a moment, the promise of freedom felt assured. But then, a low growl rose from within the shadows, a soft whisper carried on the wind that sent chills skimming up her spine. You can't run from the truth. What truth awaited them in the darkness? The silence wrapped around Sarah like a tightly woven shroud, smothering and oppressive. She and her husband were still catching their breath, their hearts racing like they had just sprinted a marathon. "What was that?" he whispered, his voice shaking, eyes darting back toward the alleyway they had just escaped. "I don't know," she replied, chest heaving. The weight of the night pressed heavily on her, but somewhere deep inside, she was beginning to feel a flicker of that adrenaline-fueled resolve that had kicked in when they had made their frantic escape back there. With every second, it felt as if danger was inching closer, coiling like a serpent ready to strike. The growl echoed again, low and menacing, sending another wave of goosebumps curling over Sarah's skin. "Let us move," she urged, pulling her husband toward the shadows of the neighboring building. They ducked behind a large dumpster, the metal cold against Sarah's back. She could hardly hear her own thoughts over the pounding of her heart. Drawing in a shaky breath, she whispered, "We need to find somewhere safe, somewhere we can plan what to do next." "Are you okay?" her husband asked, searching her face for signs of assurance. A thin sheen of sweat glistened on his brow, and she could tell the panic in his eyes mirrored her own. "I'm fine," she lied, her voice trembling as panic gripped her insides. The truth was, she felt anything but fine. A primal fear was settling into her bones like layers of ice. "Really, I just need to think." Just as she spoke, a loud crash resonated from the alley they had escaped. The intruders were pursuing them, and the sound sent fresh adrenaline surging through Sarah's veins. "We have to move." She tugged at him, pulling them away from their temporary hiding spot. "We can't just run blindly," he said, glancing back at the alley where the shadows loomed. We don't have time to plan things out like a chess game. We need to act." Before he could protest, Sarah surged forward, her instincts taking control. They sprinted down the narrow street, their breaths mingling in the chilly air as they dashed for the last flickering streetlight at the corner. The light felt like a lighthouse in a storm, a small beacon of hope amid the encroaching darkness. But it wasn't enough. A figure emerged from the shadows just ahead, face concealed beneath a dark hood. Sarah skidded to a halt, dragging her husband back just as the figure unleashed a wild burst of laughter, sharp and piercing. "Running won't save you," it taunted, a grin spreading beneath the hood like a creeping vine. "Help!" Sarah screamed, her voice raw with terror. The laughter rang out, causing bile to rise in her throat. The streetlight flickered ominously, and in the brief moments of dimness, the figure faded from view. Where her husband stammered, scanning their surroundings, but just then, she felt a presence at her back. It was the stranger from before, the one who had shouted for them to run. He was bruised and battered, but his determination shone through his pain. "This way," he barked, leading them to a nearby alley. "You shouldn't have come here. They know you're outside."
"How? Why? Who are they?"
Questions spilled from Sarah in frantic whispers.
"Does it matter?"
He shot back, urgency coloring his words. "You need to hide. Trust me." With no choice, they followed him, slipping into the narrow passage as the sounds of their pursuers filled the air. The adrenaline heightened, thrumming through her with a relentless power. They plunged deeper into the darkness, surrounded by barely visible walls and the echo of their hurried steps. As they rounded a corner, the stranger halted, breathing heavily. "We have to find a place to barricade ourselves." "It's not going to be enough," Sarah muttered, feeling the panic swell into a consuming wave once again. "They have to know where we are now." "Then we'll figure it out," he promised, determination sparking in his gaze. "But first you need to know what you're really up against." "What do you mean?" Her voice was barely above a whisper. The darkness felt like it was closing in, smothering any flicker of hope. "The truth that's lurking in the shadows is worse than you think," and just as he spoke, the thundering footsteps echoed down the alley, each reverberation a countdown to their reckoning. Would hiding offer them a chance, or would uncovering the truth become a danger in itself? With dread pooling in her stomach, Sarah braced herself for the revelation that would change everything. The faint glow of a street lamp barely illuminated the shadows enveloping Sarah, her husband, and the stranger. They huddled in a cramped alley, hearts racing like wild horses. The stranger's words hung heavy in the air. "Truth." "What truth?"
Please.
"You have to tell us everything," Sarah urged, her voice trembling. She leaned closer, desperate for more.
Who are we up against?
The stranger took a breath, his eyes flickering toward the darkness. "You're not just facing rumors or a scandal, not anymore. There are powerful forces trying to erase anyone connected to the baby and you too," he replied, urgency etched into his features. "What do you mean?" her husband asked, fingers digging into his palms.
Why?
"Because of Sarah's pregnancy?" "Yes," he confirmed, each letter weighing like lead. "There's a conspiracy. People don't want the truth about the baby to come out. It'll expose everything and everyone." Fear clawed at Sarah's chest, tightening her breath. What could possibly be connected to a baby? "There are lives at stake. All of our lives." He turned sharply, his gaze locking on hers, fierce and determined. She felt the weight of his resolve. Suddenly, ominous footsteps echoed outside the alley. Sarah's heart dropped, panic flooding her senses. They had to move.
Now.
The stranger hissed, pressing onwards through the narrow corridors of darkness. Sarah instinctively reached for her husband's hand, their fingers intertwining tightly as they followed, pulses racing with adrenaline. They ducked into another alley, the air thick with uncertainty. Each corner they turned brought fear swirling in her mind. "What if they find us?" she whispered, glancing over her shoulder nervously. "They won't if we keep moving. Just trust me," he urged, eyes scanning their surroundings restlessly. What if the truth comes out?" Her heart sank with the thought. "Every choice you make now could change everything," he replied, a flicker of urgency reflected in his eyes. "But no matter what happens, you must stay together." Just as he finished speaking, a rough voice shouted from the entrance of the alley. "We know you're in there. Come out." The stranger's brow furrowed. "This way." He led them down another shadowy path, their hearts hammering. "Where are we going?" Sarah barely managed to choke out, confusion mingling with fear. There was no turning back now. "To a safe house. We need to regroup and figure out our next move," he responded, pushing through a battered door at the end of the alley that opened into an old, abandoned building. The heavy scent of mildew wrapped around them as they stepped inside, the door creaking ominously behind them. "Keep quiet," the stranger instructed, leading them to a dimly lit room filled with broken furniture. They huddled together, the tension crackling like electricity. Sarah's mind was a whirlwind, fear battling her instinct to seek the truth. Would she sacrifice everything for this baby and for her future? "Sarah," her husband whispered sharply, bringing her focus back to him. "What do we do? Do we run again?" "We can't run forever," she said quietly, her voice trembling as desperation filled her heart. "We need answers." "Sometimes ignorance is bliss," the stranger murmured, his tone heavy with unspoken knowledge. "But staying silent? It'll cost us all, possibly our lives." The thundering footsteps from outside had quieted, and her heart felt like it might explode under the weight of mounting panic. "What if they find us?" Then we fight. We face them, he stated, the resolve in his voice igniting something within her. They had come too far to back down, now a flicker of hope blooming deep inside her. Are you ready for the truth? The stranger asked, eyeing them both with a fierce intensity. At that moment, the air shifted. She locked gazes with her husband, knowing that if they were going to face those chasing them, they had to stand together. Yes, she replied, voice steady. Then it's time to uncover what's really at stake. Before the stranger could elaborate, a noise echoed from outside. A shadowy form stepped through the doorway. The figure paused, an unexpected calmness marking its presence in stark contrast to the chaotic energy surrounding them. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, caught somewhere between dread and hope.
What now?
Her husband's voice trembled beside her. It's time to face whatever's coming, the stranger said, taking a step towards the doorway. The world felt like it was shifting, everything on the precipice of change. Stay behind me, he ordered, a protective instinct flaring in his eyes. As they waited, the room felt heavy with tension, every heartbeat an echo of uncertainty. The door creaked open wider, shadows spilling into the dim light. Who's there? The voice barked, low and menacing, sending chills racing down Sarah's spine. In that moment, they had a choice to fight for the truth or succumb to the darkness. As the light from outside flooded the room, illuminating their fates, Sarah knew one thing: whatever happened now would forever define them. Together, she whispered, gripping her husband's hand, drawing strength from their bond. No matter the chaos ahead, they would face it together. And with that, they stepped into the light, ready for whatever would come next. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support means everything, and only true fans understand its importance.